Hi, I'm Elise from Love and Light Games, and I'm really excited today in order to present to you our first game, The Path of Initiation. So I want to talk to you a little bit about our intentions in creating this game. My husband and I have been studying all sorts of different books in the last 2.5 years. We've been studying books on religion, spirituality, on psychology, and in order to answer the question of who we are and why are we here. And one of the things that's become really clear to us is that we want to share what we've learned with our friends and our family and with all of you. And so the question is, what's the best modality in which to share that information? And we talked about books or about fiction that would demonstrate some of these ideas, video projects, and we decided that a game would be a fantastic modality. You could introduce ideas and thoughts, and you can allow people to experience them and play with them, and then possibly learn to apply those to their own life. So that's the thought behind the game, and now I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the game. Okay, so now we're going to tell you a little bit about the game. So this game gives you an opportunity to be a personality, an ego, which is shown with the avatar. The avatar is going to move around the game board, which is the wheel of life and death. You are also a soul, which is symbolized by the soul stone. The soul stone will move up the tree of life. As a personality, you're going to pick an archetype. The archetype, there are 7 of them in our game. The archetype has different scores for our chakra centers, and those are put on the cards and also in the Book of Knowledge. Also, each archetype has archetypal powers. Those are powers that you can actually use in your life lessons if you so choose. So, you're going to be able to keep all of your character, your ego personality information on your character sheet, and so it's very easy to keep track of all of it. Okay, let's talk about a turn. You're going to take your avatar, which is on the game board. You will roll the dice and move your avatar around the board the set number of spaces. You will then grab a wisdom teaching card. Hold on to these. These are important. You can use them later in the game. Next, you are going to make a choice. Life is all about choices. You can choose to take on a life lesson, or you can choose just to observe. If you choose to observe, you draw a second wisdom teaching card. Observation is really important in life. Wisdom teaching cards, they actually symbolize knowledge, being aware of everything that's going on around you. It involves the movies you watch, the books you read, the conversations you have with people. You trade these in at the wisdom store, which is in the Book of Knowledge, and you can get all sorts of advantages in the game, so you'll have to check that out. So for a life lesson, you're going to be working in symbiosis with your higher self. The player who is on your right-hand side is going to serve as your higher self. That player is going to draw a life lesson card. On the card, he's going to read the top, which is going to be the situation. Now, without you knowing, he's going to roll the 20-sided die. That's going to determine if the circumstances are aligned or misaligned. A high roll is going to give you an aligned outcome and easier circumstances. A low number is going to give you a misaligned circumstance, but only the higher self knows that. You have no idea what that roll was. You're going to have an opportunity to do 7 things. You're going to can ask 3 mundane questions. Those are going to be questions that you're going to ask that will give you more information about the situation so that you can make legitimate decisions, actions. You can ask 1 spiritual question. This is really important. This is going to give you an opportunity to find out from your higher self how they really would like you to handle this situation. Sometimes my brain's going to be telling me, get involved, and my higher self is saying, get to safety, get to safety. So you want to work with your higher self for the best possible outcome and the highest amount of experience. Okay, next, you can take 3 actions. These are 3 things that you do. Your actions can be mundane actions, or that any human can do, or they can be using your archetypal powers. It's all up to you because life is all about choices. After the interaction between you and your higher self, because they are telling you how events are going in this life lesson, you now get an opportunity to address everyone at the table. This is your opportunity to tell them your intentions behind your actions. This is your chance to tell them if you try to use a universal law, or if you're trying to use one of the divine qualities, such as kindness, love, wisdom, intelligence. Whatever you were trying to accomplish in this life lesson, this is your opportunity to tell them exactly what you were trying to do. It is then your higher self's opportunity to share with everybody how the divine role went. It's the higher self's opportunity also to say, he didn't follow me at all. He wasn't catching my drift. Or say, yeah, he pretty much did exactly what I was thinking he should do. Then it's up to the other players, the player on the left and anybody else not involved, to now become the Lords of Karma. The Lords of Karma are the judge and jury. They're going to actually give you your score. After this completes your turn. You will put everything on the character sheet, everything that you've earned from the lesson, whether you did a universal law, and it's the end of your turn, and we move to the next player. And for the next player, you get an opportunity now to be the higher self. So in a nutshell, that's the game. Throughout the game, as you move up in levels, you will get a chance to try each and every archetype, all 7. You will get an opportunity to try all 7 universal laws. You will move up the Tree of Life and have done 7 initiations. At that point, it is assumed that you've experienced everything you need to experience on this realm, and you move on to something bigger and better. So everybody, I'm really excited. I'm very happy to share this with you. I hope you all go out and get the game. You can try our website, which is linked below, in order to look at our website, and we do have a free PDF version of this game for you. All right, everybody, peace. Okay, next we're going to talk about the role of the higher self. So everybody gets an opportunity to work with a higher self and to be a higher self. This is a really important aspect of the game. So, whenever a life lesson is in place, when somebody decides to take on a life lesson, the first thing the higher self does is going to make a roll with a d20 die for divine will. This is going to allow the higher self to know whether we should make this particular life lesson aligned or misaligned. A low roll gives you a misaligned life lesson. A high roll will give you an aligned lesson. The higher self plays the role of the dungeon master. If you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons, you are the one who puts in all the color, all the beauty, all the ugliness in these life lessons. So, if you are coming across a vagrant, are they smelly? Are they strange? Do they have a puppet? Whatever you want, you're going to be putting all the flavor into these life lessons. So the more creative, the more fun it is for everyone. Also, you get to decide what details you want to include in this life lesson. You can use the ones that are on the card. You can add your own. The other thing is you have to pick which objective you would like the person to have to aim for. Now, if I'm playing, I usually will roll a die to determine that. My son likes to pick the strangest one or pick his own. Do whatever you want. Just realize that you are acting as someone's higher self, but if you are playing difficult, somebody else is going to be your higher self. Just keep that in mind. Okay, so the higher self also is responsible for the difficulty checks for every action during a life lesson. Now, we put in the Book of Knowledge what standard difficulty checks would be. A 5 would be easy. Average might be 10. But these are all up to you, and some of it has to do with divine will rolls. You can make things a little bit harder if they got a really poor divine will roll. Also, another thing that the higher self is responsible for is every action is related to a chakra center. So they're going to be, for the non-player characters involved, the people in the life lesson, you're going to determine which chakra center they have and what number they have. You can do that with a dice. You could make it up if you want. Whatever you want to do. You're kind of the leader in these life lessons. So do whatever it takes to keep the game rolling and allow that person to express the divine qualities. So in a life lesson, there is a story, there's details, there's objectives, and at the very bottom of the card, we set a karma and experience points guideline. Now, we all know that life can throw us curveballs, so these are just what we kind of expected. But let's say things go horribly wrong and there's high stakes involved. You can change those values. Now, experience and karma are about the same value, with polarity 10% of that. So just bear that in mind, but we put in some numbers at the bottom for you to use. So karma is kind of an interesting concept, and the way we incorporated it in the game is that every action you do, it can have some karmic value associated with it. Our powers, our archetypal powers, have karma values associated to it. And we'll talk a little bit more about the archetypal powers. But things like lying, if you're doing a white lie to make somebody feel better, that might have a 10 value. But if you get into a fist fight and cause damage to somebody, that would be a karma value of around 50. If you take someone's life or change their life in an extreme way, it would be about 100. So that gives you some ideas of karmic values. Now, karma is kind of interesting because there's positive and negative karma. Sometimes the force you put through has a karmic value, but it's a positive karma. It helps somebody. And sometimes it's detrimental, so it's negative. So what we decided is that if your actions are positive, you can get a positive number, but you can never get a karma level above 0. 0 means you're in a Zen state. That means that you are perfectly balanced. So for example, I have started out in a life lesson with a minus 100 karmic value. Now I do a life lesson and they give me a 50 karmic value in a positive way. My new karmic value is minus 50. But let's say I only started with a minus 10 at the beginning of the life lesson and they give me 50. I can only get up to 0. That way, it made the game move more smoothly, and it also introduced the idea to our players that we want to be balanced. We want to be in a Zen state. And it makes you think that, does the force you exert, is it worth it? So we all need to think about that in our lives. Okay, so the next thing I'd like to talk about is the Lords of Karma. Now, everybody in the game is a participant. So if you are not in a life lesson or you're not the higher self, You're a Lord of Karma. You're supposed to be paying attention to the lesson, and you're supposed to be listening and thinking the whole time. The Lords of Karma are going to be awarding experience, karma, and polarity for the life lessons. Only players who aren't involved in the life lesson are to be a Lord of Karma. Now, if you have a lot of players, you can actually ask for assistance in these life lessons. There could be more than one player playing the life lesson, in which case only the players not playing can be a Lord of Karma. Lords of Karma are supposed to be looking at the divine qualities that the person has displayed. They're supposed to take into account the person's intentions, and they're also supposed to look at the outcome. All that gets weighed when they decide how much experience, karma, and polarity. Sometimes somebody has the best of intentions, but the outcome was poor, so they might not get the same amount of points as somebody whose outcome turned out better. But oftentimes the circumstances are extreme and the person did the best that they could, so you might want to give them bonus points. So the Lords of Karma have a role, and just be aware again that you're not, if you're a Lord of Karma this time, next time you might be an ego or a personality, and so in that case you want to play fair, you want to be nice. Let's talk about experience. Every life lesson gives an opportunity for experience. Now, it's quite obvious if there's a positive outcome with positive intentions, that's going to yield the most amount of experience. But no matter what happens in the life lesson, experience is gained. There is no such thing as negative experience. For experience brings growth, and it can help a person in their soul evolution. There is a correspondence between karma and experience. The way we've set the game up is karma and experience are about the same values, except during the life lesson, every action you take adds to the karmic value. So ultimately they end up being very different in our game. And it happens so in life as well. So it's just something to think about. An example of that would be, I come across a person who is about to jump off a bridge, and I decide that I'm going to use my archetypal powers to bring them to be more heart-centered and to think about all the love and the people who will miss them. I have actually used force on that person. So let's say I incur a 25 karmic value for that, and the person doesn't jump off the bridge. Well, what ends up happening is when I get my score at the end, I saved a life, so I get 100 points, but I spent 25 karma, 25 power. So ultimately, even though I got 100 experience points, the 100 minus the 25 meant I only got 75 karma. So ultimately, at the end, they end up being different, although the values are related. All right, let's talk a little bit about polarity. Now, polarity implies two distinct different things. There's a positive end and a negative end. And so the way we've worked it in this game is a positive polarity is a person who is helping others, who is displaying qualities that is beneficial to other people. Whereas the negative polarity is somebody who is self-serving and is thinking about themselves, taking the easy way out because it's more comfortable. And in this game, in order to go up in initiations, you have to achieve a certain amount of polarity. We've also set up polarity in such a way that it's a little bit harder to gain it and lose it. It's 10% of experience and karmic values. So polarity is going to be a kind of an interesting thing that you have to play with in this game. And you have to learn to balance to keep your levels where you would like it. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about initiation. So there is the wheel of life and death that your avatar is moving around. Every time you hit the death part, you have to stop. Even if your roll makes you go past death, everybody has a pause at death. At the time of death, you either qualify for initiation or you don't qualify for initiation. If you qualify for initiation, then you get to move your soul stone up the tree of life. You next get to choose a new archetype. That's pretty exciting because you're going to get a whole new set of archetypal powers to play with, as well as all the ones you currently possess. But when you take on a new archetype, all of your chakra scores are altered by that new archetype as well. You also get additional points to apply to your chakra scores, and you get an opportunity to allow anybody else who qualifies for initiation to initiate right now with you. It's called a sympathetic initiation. So in that way, we're all actually evolving together as a group. If you don't qualify for initiation at the time of death, you'll be going around the wheel of life and death again as the same archetype. Now, every time you go around the wheel of life and death, there is a penalty. The first time you go around, it's waived. The second time you go around, you get a -2 times the number of times around against your divine will roll. So your first time around, no penalty. Second time around, it's 2 times 2, which is a -4 to your divine will roll. Third time around, it's 2 times 3, a -6 to your divine roll. And you can kind of see the more times you go around, and usually that equates to the more times you decide to observe, the worse these life lessons, the harder these life lessons are going to be. It's not always a bad thing though, because sometimes the harder the life lesson, the more experience that can be accomplished. Okay, next we're going to talk about chakra scores. So in our game, we use a system of 7 chakras. There are many other systems. We use the root center, the sacral center, the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the ajna, and the crown. Each one of these relates to a specific type of energy. Every action you take during a life lesson, the higher self relates that to a particular center. And you can talk to your higher self about what center you're going to be using. Every archetypal power is also related to one of these centers. Okay, so let's give you an example of chakra scores in use. So I'm going to do a heart-centered action against a non-player character. And the higher self determines that that person has a 2 resistance to my heart-centered action. And that was an average difficulty maneuver that I'm trying to do. So that's a 10 plus their 2. I now have to overcome a 12. But I get to get my dice roll on the 20-sided die plus whatever my heart score, chakra score is for this action. In addition, if I had used some of my wisdom teaching cards at the Hall of Wisdom, I might have additional scores for abilities. I might have a +2 to all my rolls, or just this roll. So there's a few things that go into these actions, but all these things makes the game more fun and give you abilities for playing the game. Okay, so during your life lessons, there's a couple of things that you should keep in mind. You want to demonstrate the qualities of divinity, such as love, intelligence, wisdom, compassion, and you also get major points in the game for using one of the universal laws. Now, we're going to quickly go over these universal laws with you. The first universal law is mentalism. The second is correspondence. The third is vibration. The fourth is polarity. The fifth is rhythm. The sixth is causation. And the seventh is gender. For more information about the universal laws, I'm going to refer you back to the handbook. The Tree of Life. Now there is limitless volumes that goes over the Tree of Life. For the purposes of this game, we use it as a way to track your soul stone progression through the game. But that being said, we wanted to give you more. So in the Book of Knowledge, we've included a couple pages with associations in case you're interested and for further study. So the Tree of Life, for our game and for our purposes, is going to be charting the progress of the soul from Malkuth at Sephiroth 10 up the Tree of Life to the Trinity. That's the 1, 2, and 3 aspect. Many religions include a Trinity, and so this is how we include the Trinity in our soul progression. Next thing we're going to talk about is the archetypal powers. Now, in this game, we wanted you to have fun with some of these abilities and powers. And so we included things that we think mankind already has. The thing is, we have low chakra scores. We haven't developed them. And so these are all things that are possibilities for us. So it is fun to consider using these. Another thing to know about archetypal powers is they can be used in 3 ways. They can be used dominant, where you are usurping someone else's will or you're pushing that energy upon someone. It can be used magnetically, where you are using an opposite force to push it or pull it or draw it, or it can be done radiantly. That's the most passive way to use these powers, in which you are sending or receiving in a very non-aggressive, non-powerful way. So you need to think about how, not only using the powers, but how you're going to use those powers. They are actually the amount of force required, and so using something radiantly uses less karmic value, less power than using it magnetically, and then dominant is even more so. So those are some of the things to know about with archetypal powers. The 7 rays, that's the next topic. And again, the 7 rays is one of those topics that's vast. And so we wanted to include it in the game. The idea is that everything stems from one ray. It diverses to 3 different rays that are will, love, and active intelligence. And then that diversified to 7 rays. We applied a ray to each one of the archetypes. In gameplay, one of the aspects you can include is whether the person you are working against in the life lesson is on a sympathetic ray as you, in which case you can work more powerfully to help complete your actions. You can actually double your chakra scores in that case. So it is a fun way to include thinking of the rays. Let's talk about wisdom teachings. So I had mentioned that in one of our videos that I and my husband have done a lot of reading, and we kept a list of quotes that moved us. And one of the ways that we were able to incorporate that knowledge into this game is through these wisdom teaching cards. Each wisdom teaching card has 2 quotes. Each one of them are ideas in which you can think about and gain knowledge from. Now you can take that knowledge and turn it into wisdom in the Hall of Wisdom. Now, this is a fun trade-in type of idea to the game in which you take your knowledge, turn it into wisdom for aspects that'll help you in the game. Now, there are different durations for these aspects. So you can use it for a one-time only type of thing where it would help you with the dice. You could use it, some of these trade-ins are good for just one life. So while you are going around the wheel of life and death, as soon as you hit death, it's gone. The next could be, it is with you for that archetype. So whether it takes you one trip around the wheel of life or death or 15 trips around, hopefully not 15, but whether it takes you quite a few, you get to use that ability, or sometimes it's permanent. So it's really fun to have the idea that we can take our knowledge and use it to our advantage in our lifetimes. And that's what the idea for the Hall of Wisdom is. Okay, so there you have it. This is Elise from Love and Light Games, and I hope that this knowledge is useful, helpful, and inspires you to either buy a copy of the game or download it for free. We look forward to hearing anything from you, so use the links below to contact us on our website if you have any questions or comments. You can also join us on Facebook. Thanks a lot.